Asda and Kelly from Lazarus Training here. Another one of our little videos to pass some information to you. Over the weekend that's just gone, I was on a rugby tour. Not me, I don't play rugby anymore, as you can probably guess. I was with my son, who's under 14. Unfortunately, one of the lads in his team broke his wrist. Last week we were running a first aid and remote locations course aimed at media staff. We do a lot about splintage of bones in that course, and these two things coming together made me think that for this week we're going to do a series of videos about dealing with broken bones and dealing with splints. We'll put some information on at a later date about recognising the fracture, but what I wanted to do today to get us started is show you one of our favourite splints that we see in a lot of the media first aid kits, and it's the SAM Splint. Now, ironically enough, the lad that broke his wrist on the rugby tour is called Sam, but this is just the manufacturer's name for these splints. They're very, very simple, quite cheap. Here in the UK, they cost about £8–9 for this one. It's basically a thin sheet of metal, aluminium I believe, covered in some plastic, and it's really light, really bendable, and it's almost like limited by your imagination, as we'll see over the next few days. One of the things the manufacturers of them suggest you can do to make it kind of a little bit stronger is put various changes in its shape. And the first one they recommend is, you can see how easy this is to bend. We give it what's called a C shape. I think you can probably see the logic behind calling it the C shape. Still reasonably strong, probably good for some arm injuries perhaps, but you can see it's quite flexible. So the next stage up is what they call a reverse C. And you can see there we've just tweaked the edges back out. And this does make it considerably stronger, but we've got one stage left that we can go in some cases. Now, in best Blue Peter style, here's one I made earlier. They call it the T shape, and you can see the logic behind that. Simply folded in half and then folded back out again. And you'll see that what was really bendy is now almost rock solid. So remember how bendy they are before you bend it, and then rock solid. Now, the average one of these splints, 36 inches long, so that would go around my waist with a little bit to spare, and would be over the average kind of person 6 foot tall's inside leg, so we can use them for leg splints as well, but more of that to come. But I wanted to start off with something quite simple, and what with Sam hurting his wrist, yeah, it was his right wrist, we're going to show you a way that we can use the SAM Splint to provide support to an injured wrist. And that's where Kelly comes in, who's been standing here patiently, probably feeling a little bit sheepish. We'd like to imagine that she's hurt her wrist somewhere in this area here. Now, when it comes to splinting, we don't do this routinely. If there's an ambulance service nearby, we're going to call them, let them come along and deal with it, or take the person to hospital and let the hospital sort this out. And that's why I mentioned this is really a thing from our first aid and remote locations courses, like the one last week. But if we're going to splint it, we want to be in the position of functionality, sort of like holding a cup, which ironically was what we were just doing before we went live, having a cup of coffee. So I've got my SAM Splint, and the idea is that we do a lot of this stuff on ourselves. One of the first things I'm going to do is put in a grip pretty much for the fingers. And we need to put in a bit of a kink there to let the thumb sit in. And you can see that will put that hand in the position of functionality. The rest of it, because it's the arm, the wrist, probably don't need so much support. I'm just going to go for a C shape through there. Now, these splints are, strong, are thin enough that you can actually cut it through, but just for expediency, I've put that little bit underneath. So I've got the idea, the structure on myself. I think you can probably notice Kelly and I are slightly different sizes. So we have to get the arm into position and obviously very gently get it onto there. Got that good grip going on, and then we need to push this in and mould it in to fit around Kelly's arm. Now, obviously I'd be doing this a little bit more gingerly if she had actually injured her wrist, but you can see the structure of it. Now all I need to do is secure it, and I'm going to use one of our little crepe bandages from our first aid kits. Round here, loosely, don't want anything too tight. I'm going to come back over now and secure it at this end, coming round, not covering up any of the fingers. I'll let you contemplate that for a moment or so while I just finish this off. Why we like to leave the fingers open. Up the arm we come. Now, as this is about a 4 metre bit of crepe bandage, we'll have plenty left over, so you could cut it. I am, for the moment though, just going to tuck it in there. Gives a little bit of extra padding on the end there. Just want to make sure it's not pressing on the ulnar nerve, the funny bone, if we want to go for bonus points. So back to the fingers. Why didn't we cover them over? It's so I can do the blanch test, press on it, release, and the colour returns nice and quickly. Just do that again as the camera's moved in closer. Press on it, release, and the colour comes back nice and quickly. Shows circulation to this hand It's all nice and healthy, and if nothing else, Kelly isn't too cold, and the sacrifices she made, she's cleaned off her nail polish and stuff just so we could do this demonstration. So today's video, the purpose of it was to show you the SAM Splint, this nice mouldable splint that you find in a lot of first aid kits. Quite cheap if you're putting your first aid kit together. Big fan of these. We used to use them to pack inside the medical kits, and we'll show you some other tricks with them as the week goes on. In this case, because of Sam, the rugby player, not the people that make the splint, we've gone for a splint to support the wrist, particularly for an injury on the inside of the wrist, the vulva side of it all. And there we go. And if I let go, hopefully that's supporting itself all nice and well. So good stuff. So if we start at the wrist, I think what we'll do tomorrow is we'll come back and we'll look at some injuries to further up the arm, perhaps to the elbow, taking it all the way up to the shoulder. Any questions, drop us a line. You know, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. You can get hold of us nice and easily. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you same sort of time tomorrow, about 2 PM UK time, and we'll show you some more uses of the SAM Splint. Bye, Internet.